Mortal Engines! Hello there, campers. My name is Paul Hughes. I am the Lord of Leisure. Yes, I am him. And indeed, welcome to another Aftermath video, which is being, of course, shot in my lovely front room. And I, of course, attained my lordly robes, as it were, and also the cup of tea. So cheers. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Aftermath videos are basically when I come out of watching something at the cinema, and then I pontificate on the webcam for your dining and dancing pleasure about whether or not the film was any good or not in the first place, before at least at some point writing a proper review like proper people. I really don't. Today's Aftermath video is all about Mortal Engines, which is the steampunky, post-apocalyptic type malarkey that is coming out in the cinemas probably by the time you see this video on YouTube, and maybe also Twitch as well. It's by Peter Jackson. It's based on a series of books by Philip Reeve, which I had no idea about until afterwards, and actually I have to thank some other people pointing that out to me. For the purposes of this, I have no idea about the books whatsoever, but I'm still gonna make an educated guess about them as we go on. Now, the premise behind Mortal Engines, the extraordinarily bombastic city-moving thingy type film, is that the world got destroyed by funky weapons with purple lighting, and now there are giant towns and cities roaming the deserts slash wasteland slash whatever the hell they're calling this for bits and pieces to forage around, and that's kind of it for the world being set. Basically, shit hit the fan, and now people are living in giant cities. The biggest city featured in the film is London, so yay, London, hometown! There you go, that's the level of excitement I should say, and to be perfectly honest, it's exactly the same if nothing seems to have changed. So clearly, if you're in London right now, you'll just go, oh yeah, I've been there. Hugo Weaving is basically the prerequisite bad guy in this. It's not even a spoiler, because this happens 10 minutes into the film, frankly. London is basically swallowing up various smaller towns, so taking all the resources and the people, merging them into their own. But Hugo Weaving has various plans of his own to go and do various naughty things, and all the while, it appears that there's a couple of happy-go-lucky scamps, of which I have no idea who they are, but I imagine that when I write the review up properly, I'll actually go, oh yeah, it's those actors and actresses and everything else. I mean, in fact, I will say this, there was only a couple of actors that I actually recognized in this. It's mainly an unknown cast, I would say, for pretty much everyone. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in any case, kids, because sometimes the unknown actors are the ones that come out with terrific performances. So there's treachery and deceit in regards to the story. London basically goes off on one and everyone becomes afraid of it. You've got various things that happen along the way. You've got our main characters, of one of which is called Tom, which he's only ever known London, as it's roamed around the earth, just swallowing up other towns and so on. And he meets a girl called Hester, who tries to kill Hugo Weaving, but then runs off. And then, of course, Tom leaves London, and then that's when everything unravels, and you start. Well, this is going to be the problem here. In order to describe some of it, I'm going to stay away from spoilers, but the references I'm going to invoke pretty much are going to make you go, oh. Because I will say this. At the beginning, they had set up this world. There was an awful lot of exposition about explaining about the concept of old tech and what they considered history and why things were happening. But even so, it was almost delivered at a breakneck speed. And you get introduced to a hell of a lot of characters all the way along. And in a strange sort of way, this film is best summed up as a rip-off of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. I wish I was joking. It genuinely, there are moments when you just go, what the... in yourself. I mean, obviously, there are some... There are too many similarities in this to not get away from that. I mean, right down to the Luke, I am your father moment from Empire Strikes Back. You get that in this. And in a strange sort of way as well, what happens in the film is a series of events that happens to have the characters turn up in. It's just... And the breakneck speed that it goes through absolutely everything, from start to finish as well, you almost don't get enough time to breathe. And then they try and shoehorn in some emotional bits and bobs, like backstory, all the rest. The exposition in this, where everyone pretty much wheels off a little speech about what happened or otherwise, it's too much. And in a way... This film also suffers from Valerian bollocks of 1,000 planets, which I have reviewed previously. The major complaint about that was they built a world which had an interesting premise, wonderful scenes and so on, and then they do fuck all with it. That's what Mortal Engines suffers from. They built an interesting premise of a world, obviously based on the books by Philip Reeve, which I had no idea about. But I can say this, I bet you the books by Philip Reeve are way better than what they did with the film. And that's a shame. I like me some steampunk. The cities they build, the aesthetics, the way the characters dress and so forth, that's brilliant. But then they do nothing with them. Save rip off Star Wars. I mean, fucking hell. We end up in a battle with effectively the Death Star right at the end. Obviously... trying not to say directly about spoilers, but frankly, just saying that, you kind of know where things are going. And the last 20 minutes, most of all, that's where any suspension of disbelief for me, I just threw it out the window. And I gotta be honest, I just started laughing. Because it was just getting, it was a WTF moment after WTF moment of ludicrousness. And I will say this as well. People who get stabbed in this film remarkably can just keep on moving around like nobody's business. La 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 la. Oh, and they have a Terminator in this, basically, halfway through. That, while single-minded in his purpose and what he's doing, again, this is explained in backstory, blah, 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 he then stops at an opportune moment on Bespin. For those of you who watch Star Wars, you're going to get the reference. And seriously, Empire Strikes Back, for fuck's sake. He stops right just before about to kill someone. And it seems that he has a change of heart. But he doesn't have a heart. But he has memories. Oh, okay, stop. That's it! I know, perhaps a wee bit of a spoiler in that sense, but it was just a, a kind of a moment to arrive at. And because we also get introduced to a shit ton of characters, we also don't care if they live or die. So there are various points in a battle that takes place where characters that we see on the screen briefly, they get into trouble. I literally don't care. They could pop off for a cup of tea and a slice of cake for all the difference it makes to me. I just like, okay, they were there, now they're gone, bye. And because it felt too rushed. There were things that it wasn't enough time to breathe, especially absorbing some of the world, who some of these people were, why they were doing these things. And that's why I can already say about the book, you're going to have to be able to find an awful lot more out just by reading that than this 2-hour-old film. And it's a shame. It genuinely is a shame. I mean, hell, Hugo Weaving's daughter, whoever played her, that character was basically a waste of time. She was there to look pretty and then pull a lever. And then go pretend emotional. That was as much as I could ascertain, and I didn't care. I just didn't care. So, in a way, I've got to consider who this is for. This is obviously a big budget Christmas film. It might actually do best for kids who basically will just be looking at shit just happening on the screen. There is also to be fair, there is a laugh out loud moment when they first show a museum that is being catered for within London, where we first see the city itself roaming around the wastelands, and that I definitely don't want to spoil, because it was genuinely funny. All credit on that one. But I think this easily could have been a film that, if they'd split it up into 2 parts, might have been able to find some more space and then allow things to get flushed out and so forth. And then you might have actually not been as, well, maybe jaded is kind of the best way to put it. Because then if they had gone the way they did with the second half of the film, then you would have, as a separate film, then you would have gone, yeah, all right. I mean, this coming from Peter Jackson as well, production, and, he did some of the screenplay and various other things. If you can get 3 fucking films out of The Hobbit, you would have easily got 2 out of this if you split it up. Let it, savor your senses. That type of thing. But as it stands, this is going to be one of those Christmas films, comes out and then no one will remember it. And that is a crying shame. It genuinely suffers from ripping off quite a bit from Star Wars, a bit of the Terminator, and and everything happens too fast. And then ultimately you don't care, and then you'll happily just walk out of the cinema and go, that happened. Pie? Would you like some pie? So, can I recommend Mortal Engines? I mean, I will say this: it's a shame for the people who did the effects, the aesthetic, the design, and everything. That was all great, but it's now just gonna get left behind, and it's a crying shame. If you've got kids and you basically just want to plonk them down in the cinema to watch some shit. This is where it gets a bit difficult, because obviously Bumblebee, Transformers is coming out Christmas Eve here in the UK, and so obviously that's going to be pretty much the same thing. People will probably end up going to watch Bumblebee over this, which there was potential with Mortal Engines, but it's kind of, in a strange sort of way, buckled under its own weight, and if they do a sequel, I hope they take more time over it. I hope they get the time to do something more and, flush an awful lot out more. But as it stands, unless you got kids or otherwise, and you just want something to plonk them down on, and they're not going to really pay much attention apart from shit happening on screen at breakneck speeds, nah. Sadly, I can't say. See Mortal Engines, I can't say to you, rush out to the cinema, watch it. No. It definitely works on a big screen, in terms of the grandioseness and so forth. But again, this is one of those that I could actually turn around and say, you can end up watching this on Netflix doing your ironing. It is one of those. See? Ironing. And I hope in a strange sort of way, they get the chance to do something else again with Immortal Engines. Because at the very least, they've got to explain various things that go on. Because with this pacing and everything else, I started, because I was not as, my sense of disbelief was gone, I started questioning things where it didn't make much sense. Things started to go, hang on, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? It's just, and those things take you out of it again. Like, why were people on these giant cities really, especially if it looked like that people were settling down at some point? Resources or otherwise. You can't... And there was oceans. There were oceans still in this. So therefore, you've got a source of water. You just got to process the salt out of it. And like I said, I started just thinking too much. And maybe that's also the critical thing here. If you think anything about Mortal Engines while watching it, that's where you're going to have a problem. So, yeah. Mortal Engines, ladies and gentlemen, I can't recommend you go and spend cash at the cinema. It works on the big screen, obviously, from the special effects and so forth, but there's so much more that sadly lets it down. So, I'd say this is a catch it on Netflix type deal. Bit of a shame, really, but, yeah. Right, campers, there you go. There's my Aftermath thoughts. At some point, I'll probably do something else. There is definitely an Aftermath video to come about Fantastic Beasts 2, Electric Boogaloo. I still haven't done that yet. It will come at some point. I'm going to carry on having my cup of tea, pick my nose and have a nap. And in the meantime, I have been Paul Hughes. I'm still the Lord of Leisure. I will be even after this video has finished. I hope you enjoyed this little tete-a-tete, as it were, on this digital whatever it is. And until next time, campers, take it easy, and I will see you all very soon. Until then, bye!